What a great crowd. What a huge crowd. And you sent in hundreds and hundreds of questions. I will be integrating those into the conversation today. So we have heard you, we understand what your concerns are, and we hope to touch on many of them, if not all of them, in the course of this conversation today. Senator, thanks so much for being with us.
It's great to be with you, Gene. And Mike, thank you for the very, very kind introductions and your kind remarks.
I want to start with the news of the day, which is that Iran is releasing 4 Americans who have been held there. Yes. Now, some people would say that this is one of the first dividends of having struck a nuclear deal with Iran. What do you say?
Well, listen, I want to start by just saying, praise God, the Americans are coming home. You know, the details are just breaking this morning. We know one of the 4 who's coming home is Pastor Saeed Abedini. And so many of us have been lifting up Pastor Saeed in our prayers. Believers across the world have been praying with him. Pastor Saeed's wife, Name, I've gotten to know quite well. And she has been just a rock through this. There are 2 little kids desperate for their daddy to come home. And so I'm thrilled, and we are all giving prayers of thanksgiving. The details are still coming out. I hope also among those Americans, I hope Amir Hekmati is included among them. I haven't seen confirmation of that. And I hope Jason Rezaian is among them as well. We are waiting for the details on that. And we're waiting for the details on the deal. There may be some ugly parts of this deal that we don't know about yet. So we should withhold judgment. But right now, I give thanks that the Americans are coming back. And this should have happened a long, long time ago.
But I would say it didn't. And it has happened now, just as this deal is going into effect.
You're right. It didn't happen, and it didn't happen because it wasn't a priority for Barack Obama or John Kerry. And consistently, look, I introduced legislation 3 years ago that said before any discussions even began with the nation of Iran, Iran should release our American hostages and should acknowledge Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state.
I want to get to what you are going to do if you should become President Cruz vis-a-vis Iran. We're waiting for the IAEA perhaps today to say that they have complied with the early stages of the agreement. That will lead to a lifting of sanctions. By the time the next president comes into office, this will have been in effect for a year. What do you do at that point?
I have pledged on the first day in office, if I'm elected, I will rip to shreds this catastrophic Iranian nuclear deal.
So if you do that, what do you do about Iran's nuclear capability? How do you address it?
The only way to address it, the only way to deal with Iran is from strength. Weakness and appeasement doesn't work, and that has been the Obama foreign policy.
But what does that mean when it comes to Iran?
What that means is, number one, we immediately reimpose sanctions. Number two, we strengthen them. I filed legislation laying out exactly how to do this, which is to strengthen the sanctions, to make them even more crippling, and to lay out clear preconditions. If Iran wants to lift the sanctions, it must shut down all 19,000 centrifuges. It must hand over all of its enriched uranium. It must shut down its ICBM program. The ICBM program, by the way, exists for one purpose, and that is to carry a nuclear weapon to the United States of America. You don't need an ICBM to get to Israel. That is designed to cross the Atlantic and murder Americans. And the fourth condition is that Iran ceases being the leading state sponsor of terrorism. The fact that President Obama is giving $150 billion to the Ayatollah Khamenei is the most colossal foreign policy mistake in modern times, and the result could be millions of dead Americans.
Let me ask you this. If we rip up the deal with the Iranians, we didn't negotiate it by ourselves. There were other parties involved. And if they see the U.S. do this, and I'm including the Europeans here, Are they going to be likely to go along with a new, tougher sanctions regime?
Look,
Or
they may not, although I would note...
Well, then how effective will it be?
It will be very effective. This started with unilateral American sanctions. Now, one of the consequences...
And it didn't get them to give up their nuclear weapons.
But it imposed crushing penalties, and I would note that Libya did give up their nuclear program in response to crushing sanctions. We've seen a plan that works, and Libya gave up their nuclear capacity. But if you look at, you're putting your finger on one of the most problematic aspects of the Obama-Iran deal, which is he has succeeded in unraveling the international consensus. The world was united, standing against Iran, putting sanctions in place. He's unraveled that, and so you are right. The next president, when he or she is sworn in, sanctions are going to be a less effective tool because Obama's done permanent damage by driving our allies away from standing united against Iran.
Or one could say that there are other players in the world who believe it's more constructive to engage in dialogue with your enemy.
Well, I can tell you during this negotiation, ambassadors for European nations were telling me directly that the Obama administration was leaning on them, was hammering them, that they were getting relentlessly battered by the Obama administration to support this deal. And our allies are not happy with that. Listen, it is amazing to see. I'll give credit to President Obama in one regard. He's actually managed to unite the Arabs and the Jews. You have Israel and the Arab world both saying, you want Iran to have nukes? Are you friggin' nuts?